Hello everybody, it's Jenn, Scrapbena Creations. Welcome to my July 2017 Simon Says stamp card kit using the exclusive See You Soon clear stamp set, some moonshine confetti, this adorable bikini die, these foam lines from Doris, a piece of acetate, and the paper pad is from Echo Park Summer Dreams. And I'll just do a quick flip through here. The patterns are absolutely adorable and perfect sized for card making. I had so much fun with this kit. This is the first card kit I've ever received, and I had a lot of fun playing with it, like I said. So here's the inspiration sheet, and then you also get a Simon Says stamp doll pink 120-pound white cardstock. The blue is called Audrey Blue, and then the Sunshine. So let's move on to card number 1. I am using the cloud stamp from the set, which I have to say were pretty tricky in terms of trying to stamp them out with a dye ink, which is mostly what I have. But it doesn't matter for this because I'm actually going to create a stencil with this. So I've just stamped it out on some 110-pound cardstock, and I just want to cut out the cloud borders, and then I used a Lawn Fawn rectangle die here, and I'm using some Bristol Smooth cardstock for this. So first off, I'm going to do the ocean, and I'm using 3 distress inks. I'm going to use Cracked Pistachio, Peacock Feathers, and Mermaid Lagoon. So I'm using the lightest, which is Cracked Pistachio, then the Peacock Feathers, then the Mermaid Lagoon. And as I move through, I will darken it up as I go. This was a really small piece of paper, so it was quite easy and quick to do. I just wanted to make sure I had it nice and blended, and yet you could still see the variations in the 3 different colors. So then I'm going to lift up that Post-it tape, and I'm going to cover the ocean part now, and I'm going to use tumbled glass distress ink, and I'm going to use the cloud stencil that I made. So if you're worried about the ink transferring, you could clear off your craft mat first, but for the top I wasn't too worried because I knew that if some got on it would just make it a little bit darker. So you can see here how the stencil makes some perfect fluffy clouds for our little seascape here that we're going to be making as the focal panel of the first card. So now that I've got that done, I'm just going to use a little bit of blue over the whole top just so that it dulls the white. I'm going to spray some water on that just over the water part, not the sky part. I'm going to stamp the sentiment "What are you up to?" which is absolutely adorable and very clever. And then I'm going to use the seagull stamps that come in the kit. So from my stash, I'm using some fun foam here just to pop up this back panel. I love fun foam because it gives a little bit of dimension, but not too much, and makes cards very easy to mail. So now that I have that done, I'm going to cut down this beautiful piece of pattern paper, and I'm going to cut it down to 4 by 5¼ so that it leaves a white border around the panel. So I'm using my Nuvo adhesive here just to glue on this panel to the card base. That paper is so pretty you could almost just leave it as is and just stamp a sentiment on it. So I'm going to put that focal panel there, and I did get a little bit of ink smudging, so I'm just using my Tombow sand eraser to get a little bit of that black ink that transferred from my finger. Now I'm going to use some of the moonshine confetti. These are really beautiful. They're a clear color and they have no holes in it, so it's not a sequin. It's considered a confetti because there's no holes, but it just adds a lovely little extra bit to your card. So on to card number 2. I had this strip of paper left over and I didn't want to waste it, so I'm going to use it, and I'm stamping out the sentiment that says sending summer hello, or sending a summer hello. I cut out a bikini with one of the pieces of paper. It's actually this paper here, and I'm going to be using that as the panel for my card. I really love all the colors in that pattern paper. It really picks up nicely on the strip that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to adhere that down with my ATG gun, just for a stronger adhesive because it's going over that other piece of paper. And I'm lining that up to the bottom and the top of the card base. I'm going to stick that down in place, and then I'm going to trim that off quickly. And then I'm going to put the bikini on the strip on top of the sentiment. So I'm just making sure to get all those little pieces out of the string bikini, and I'm going to adhere that directly down to the paper. So I used a whole bunch of different glues with the die cut bikini just to kind of see which was best, and I do think I preferred the glue pen. It just was able to get on those tiny pieces nicely. So once I get my bikini in place here, it was a little bit intricate gluing all of the bikini pieces on, but I absolutely fell in love with this die, so I didn't mind at all. These bikinis with the pattern paper are so adorable. So I'm just going to finish this off with some Wink of Stella glitter brush pen or marker, just to give it some shine, as this card is pretty clean and simple. If you are new to my channel, welcome. Thanks for joining me. My style is very clean and simple. So for those of you who have been viewers for a while, these cards definitely fit that theme and are, I think, what you can expect from me more often than not. So moving on to card number 3, I'm going to be using the plastic flamingo. This is a dye ink by Lawn Fawn, and I'm going to be stamping out the sentiment again, sending a summer hello. And I'm going to stamp that twice just to make sure I get a nice crisp image. And I'm using a mini stamping tool to help me do that. So then I'm going to take the stamp that looks like ocean waves, and I'm using the mermaid ink from Lawn Fawn as well, just to add a little bit of a border underneath that sentiment. And I'm going to be using this panel, the yellow and white Pinocchio. That was like between Pinocchio and polka dot. Yellow and white polka dot paper here, and I'm cutting out a rectangle hole. This was a Lawn Fawn stitched rectangle die as well. And I'm going to be making a shaker with this card. So I'm going to lay down some acetate, and then I'm going to add some foam adhesive. And I speed up through this process so you don't have to watch me stick foam adhesive down, given these are long videos as they are, with 10 cards being made in them. So here we go. I have the foam adhesive down. I'm just using my powder tool to make sure that it's not sticky on the inside. I'm going to trim down this panel so that it fits behind, and you can see it clearly through the window. I'm going to remove the adhesive here, as you can see, and then I'm going to put in some of those confetti. And one of the things I learned is that you really want to make sure that they are all flat and none of them are laying on top of each other, because they will get caught up in each other. So now I'm going to do the panel here. So I'm using another piece of the pattern paper, this adorable one with the Ferris wheel. And again, I cut this to 4 by 5 1/4 so that there's a white border. I just needed to trim up that bottom or that back panel there a little bit more. And then I'm going to adhere this panel closer to the left side. And once I get that down, I am going to adhere another bikini. So same pattern paper as the one I used before. I really love the pop of the navy, especially against the yellow of this pattern paper. And then once I get this down, you can see how finicky it kind of is to get glue on it, but definitely worth it, like I said. And so that's going to be it for that card, and then we're going to move on to card number 4. So for card number 4, I wanted to do some ink smooshing. So I'm using the Mermaid Lagoon and just adding some water. Now I'm using regular cardstock. I did not use watercolor paper for this, and it works just fine. I did use my heat tool here to speed up the drying process a little bit because I was impatient and didn't want to wait for it to dry. I love the pattern that this ended up coming out with. I thought it was really subtle. I was going for like a water kind of spilt on the ground look. So not a full colored background, but just like someone had splashed in a pool and that's what was remaining. So now I'm going to move on to the sentiment, and I'm using the sentiment that says bikinis are like fries, you can't have just one. And I just used some mint colored cardstock from my stash. There is a pattern paper that is very similar to that color that you can use instead. And now I want to lay down 3 bikinis on this panel. So the pattern paper panel that I'm using is left over from the card number 3 that I did. And I wanted to make sure that I was using up as much of the pattern paper as possible. So this is really sweet. It's like a ticket pattern, and it says pool and splash. So it went perfectly with the background that I was going for. Now I wanted to see where I was going to get these placed because I want to get the sentiment banner down so that I can adhere the vellum underneath that sentiment panel, just so that it stays down and is adhered well to that pattern paper. So you can see that's what I'm going to do here now. So it took a little bit of playing with to see where I wanted those bikinis to go. But I do think in the end, this is actually my favorite card. I love how it turned out. I just loved the background looking like water. So here I'm using my Nuvo liquid adhesive. I wanted to see how that would go in terms of getting these itsy bitsy teeny weeny bikinis adhered down. And the Nuvo works well as it does work well. It's just a little bit harder to get in those smaller pieces, but once it's dry, you cannot see it on the vellum. So I have these 3 adorable patterns of paper for the bikinis: the yellow and white polka dot, the flamingos, which is one of my favorite patterns in this paper pad, and then a tiny multicolored polka dot. And all of these colors just go really well with the background ticket paper that I'm using. So all of the papers coordinate beautifully. I mean, they normally do when they come in a paper pad, but I loved every paper in this paper pad, and I might even buy a paper pad so that I can make more cards. I would absolutely recommend this kit. I loved it. So I'm getting these in place, and then I'm going to trim off that yellow one at the top. So now that I have my bikinis down, I can add glue behind them so that the vellum sticks nicely to that piece of paper at the back. Now, because there was a little bit of warping, I wanted to make sure that I had a lot of adhesive on the back of this, so I did not spare any at all. So then I want to make sure that I'm going to get this on nice and straight with no crinkles in it. So I'm just going to use a lot of pressure there, and it went on perfectly. So for the panel, I'm going to pop it up on some fun foam, and I want to make sure that that doesn't move at all. So I'm going to use lots of adhesive again. And I'm going to cut out this panel of fun foam. And then I'm going to do a little bit of doctoring here because I cut that off on an angle. So I'm just going to put that back together and no one will ever know. And then use lots of adhesive so that it sticks to that card base there. And then I'm going to trim off the top of the yellow bikini that's overhanging the top of the card. And I'm going to use the Ink glitter brush marker again on the bikinis. It just gives them an added touch of glitter and makes them pop off the page. And then we're going to be done. Number 4, and we'll be moving on to card number 5. So for card number 5, this card is very simple to make, but I think it's adorable. I have the kind of mint color pattern paper here, and I'm going to use a stitch circle die. This is a Simon Says stamp die, and on the back of that is the watermelon paper, which I will use in an upcoming card. So I'm going to make another shaker card. So I'm going to just adhere down the acetate. And then I'm going to use the foam strips that come in the kit. These foam strips are very finicky. They are extremely sticky, which is good. But if you lay it down in a spot where you don't want it, it's very hard to get it back up. And I really couldn't place it in a pretty way, for no other way to say that. It definitely isn't as easy to use as the 3M foam. So once I had the circle element done, I went back to the 3M foam adhesive. Now the foam strips or the adhesive strips that come in the kit are great for circles, so that's what I'm going to keep mine and use it for. Anything that you need to bend around, those strips are fantastic. You just want to make sure that you take off both sides of any of the adhesive backing strips so that you can work with it much more easily. So I'm putting a lot of foam tape on this card, just making sure that it will stay sturdy in the mail. And I'm just leaving a white background. I loved how the mint green just popped off the white. And I'm going to be using the sentiment Beach Please, which you can say a little bit differently, and it has a slightly different meaning. I'm going to use some of the confetti again, and here's where I was saying it's really important to make sure that they're not on top of each other because they do get caught up on each other if they're kind of piled onto each other before you put your paper down. So now it's moving nicely in there, and I'm going to use the watermelon paper for the bikini die cut on this card. And the pink is just so pretty on top of that mint colored paper. I really love this card. It's so simple, but I really think it's adorable, and with the shaker card element, it just gives it that little added something that doesn't make it completely simple. I think anybody would still really like this card, even though it was probably one of the quickest ones to make. So to finish off the card, I'm just using my Wink of Stella again on the little watermelons only, and that card is finished, and we can move on to card number 6. So we are halfway through, more than halfway through now. So for this card, I wanted to make a patterned background paper with the bikinis cut out of all different kinds of patterned paper. I just loved the paper in this kit, like I'd said, and was absolutely addicted to this bikini die. So I cut it out of scraps that I had from making the other cards and was able to make this adorable background, well, not background, but pattern paper out of the die cut bikinis. So it's going to take me a little bit to get all of these on. That pattern paper there is adorable. It's little Polaroid cameras. So it made the cutest little bikini. And this card as well is pretty simple, but getting all of the bikinis die cut and glued on was a lot of effort, and I think it was worth it. But as you can see here, I'm going to start putting them all on, because as I'm getting kind of more towards the middle and bottom of the card, I wanted to make sure that they were all going to fit. So you can see here, once they're all in place, it looks absolutely adorable. And it's fun to just kind of fit the tops and bottoms into the holes where the full sets of bikinis are. So this is a really pretty kind of turquoisey green pattern paper. And I love the plaid one too, but the watermelon and the flamingo paper for the bikinis, I think, were my absolute favorite. So as I mentioned, this was my first card kit ever, and I really loved working from a kit. As of the time of doing this voice recording, the kit was still available for purchase from Simon Says Stamp, and I used up almost all of the paper in the kit, and I'm going to hold on to this bikini die for a long time, I think. I really am looking forward to using this throughout the summer. I think it would just make anybody's day to get a card with a little bikini on it. So you can see here I'm trying to fit this bottom one, and I end up putting it here, but this panel is actually 4.5 by 5 3/4, so it's larger than a standard A2 size card, and I am going to be trimming it. So you can see here I noticed that there's a gap in that bottom left hand corner, so I'm gonna have to pull this up, and it does rip a little bit, but I'm able to salvage the bikini. I'm gonna add some more glue there just to where it was missing from pulling it back up. And then I'm just going to fit it in that corner so that when I die cut this, there's actually no white spaces around the edges. So I'm going to get that into place. Now I also cut a stitched rectangle from the Sunshine cardstock that came in the kit as well. And I had to be really careful here because the paper was starting to pull up, even though it's low tack post-it tape. I don't know if there was a bit of adhesive maybe on the top of it, but I definitely had to be careful lifting that up. So I get that on, and then I'm going to glue the panel on. And originally I had thought that I was going to put something on the front of this card, either a sentiment banner or a focal point, but I just loved all the pattern paper too much, so I decided to leave it as is and put the sentiment on the inside of the card. So I'm using Stamping Up Night of Navy for the sentiment, and I really love this as an alternative to black because there is no black in this card. So the navy picks up with the navy in the pattern paper. So again, just because this card is fairly simple, I'm going to use the glitter brush marker and give it lots of shimmer and shine. And now we can move on to card number 7. So I'm using this turquoise green pattern paper, and I'm going to be die cutting out this stitched rectangle panel with the bikini die, and I'm going to be using the negative space from the die cut. So I'm going to be making another shaker element on this card, And I'm using the Night of Navy ink again, and I'm going to be putting the sentiment, "What are you up to?" And I'm going to do that, as you can see, in the middle of the bikini. I'm going to stamp that twice. And then I'm going to move on to putting the shaker element together. So I'm going to put lots of adhesive down so I can get the acetate on the back of the bikini. And here's my cat Lila coming to say hello. I think both of them appear in this video at some point over the 2 days it took me to make all these cards. But now I'm going to put the bikini into the negative space here because I want to make sure that I get that neck part so you can see the bikini the way it's intended to be. I don't really know how to describe that. But without that, it would just be an open space. So you want to make sure that you're adhering that insert piece, and just by having the actual bikini there, you just make sure that it goes in the right place. So now we have a cute little bikini shaker element, and I've gone ahead and put the foam adhesive down, and I'm just using my powder tool here. I'm going to fill it with some of the moonshine confetti again, and then I'm going to be using a piece of pink pattern paper. This has summer words all over it, and you can just see it popping through on the back, which I think looks really pretty. There is some pink in the pattern paper here that I'm holding that I'm using for the panel of the card. So the bikini really pops with that hot pink color. So I'm just going to adhere these in place, and I'm going to use the ATG again. Anytime I want to make sure nothing is going to move, I use my ATG gun. And then I'm going to center this in the center of the card. I thought about putting it a little bit to the top, but decided that I really liked it in the center. And that's that card finished. So moving on to card number 8, I'm going to be using the positive pieces from the last card, and I'm using that wave stamp again with VersaFine ink, which is a sticky ink that you can heat emboss with. So I'm using this just to give the bikini a little bit of pattern because this is just regular cardstock. And I'm going to be heat embossing it with white embossing powder. So I just want to make sure that I get good coverage on the bikini. And then I used my tweezers to try to find a spot that didn't have ink on it. And I'm going to get the powder on there very carefully. I'm going to heat it without taking it off of the tweezers, and it melts really quickly because it's such a small surface. So I feel like this just gave the bikini an extra added touch. You could also do this with the tiniest seagull stamp that comes in the set if you wanted to give them a seagull bikini. I did try that afterwards and it looked really cute. So if you're looking for something a bit different, that's something that you could definitely do. So I'm going to stamp the sentiment as well, and I'm going to use the Versa mark again because I will white heat emboss this just so that the card is cohesive. So I'm just using my powder tool there to make sure nothing sticks to places that I don't want it to stick. And I'm using Simon Says Stamp Fine Detailed White Embossing Powder for this card. It's great for sentiments because it is very, very detailed, which is nice. So I'm just going to heat that up and get that ready to go. And then I had this circle cut out from another card that I had made earlier. And this is the flamingo pattern paper, which is so cute. And again, I'm going with the pink and teal theme, or pink and mint. It's kind of a combo between mint and teal in my opinion. But the two colors are so pretty together, just so fun and summery. So I'm making sure that I get lots of adhesive on this, and I'm just going to place the bikini right in the center of the circle. I want to make sure as much of the flamingos are showing as possible. And there goes my second cat, Piper. She's going to come back and I'm going to get her out of the way. And then I'm going to use some foam adhesive just so that that's popped up to the same level as the circle, the focal point of the card. And I'm going to put that in the bottom right hand corner. And then I'm just going to use some sequins from my stash. So these sequins are light pink. Some of them have a bit of yellow in them, so I do change out the one there that was looking a little bit more yellow than it was pink. And I'm just going to add those on to tie in some more pink from the card so that the only place that pink didn't appear was on that circle. But you could definitely use the moonshine confetti if you wanted to, if you don't have any other sequins or confetti in your stash. But yeah, this card again is really clean and simple, but I really love the way it turned out. So moving on to card number 9. We're almost there. So I used the Audrey Blue cardstock that came in the kit, and I'm going to stamp the sentiment on here, the one that says sending a summer hello. And I'm going to be using the white embossing powder again. Now that it was on my desk, I couldn't stop using it. So I do like how the white goes with the summer feeling, and it really goes with the pattern paper. I'm making sure to get full coverage here on the sentiment. So I'm making sure to put a lot of embossing powder on there. And then I'm going to heat that up with my heat tool. And I didn't get as thick of a coverage as I would have liked. So you'll see here how I fix that up a little bit. Or maybe I actually cut that out. But I did use a white gel pen to go over the letters just to try to make it a little bit more thick, if you know what I mean. I don't know if I'm making sense. But on with the card. So I'm using some foam again for this panel because this is the only thing that I'm putting on this card. I really loved all the words in this pattern paper, and I thought a bold sentiment really fit well with that theme. So here you can see now I'm bringing in the white gel pen and I'm going over those larger letters just to make sure that it's more smooth, or it's smoother, I guess would be grammatically correct. I think maybe if next time I wouldn't use a fine detailed for the larger letters, and I think it might come out better. But I do like how this card turned out. Very, very plain and simple, but cute. I thought that would be a good masculine card. So on to the last card, card number 10, and I'm back with the bikini die cuts because I just couldn't get enough of them. So I'm actually going to be creating this card right on a white card base, and I'm just going to use 3 of the die cut bikinis here in different pattern papers. I'm just trying to see where I want it to be. I want the sentiment to be somewhat centered in the card, and I want to make sure that I have enough room for these 3 bikinis. So I wanted to make sure that I did the outside bikinis first to make sure they fit on there, because as you can see, the bottoms are larger than the top, and it is a snug fit to get all 3 of them onto a standard A2 size card, but you can do it. So I was really happy because I wanted an odd number because odd numbers are more pleasing to the eye. So I was able to get the 3 of them on there. And then I just want to make sure that I have equal space from the top of the bikini to the top of the card as I do from the bottom of the bikini to the bottom of the card. And so I'm going to get these in place. I love that little plaid bikini. It's so cute. And then this one here is little popsicles, which is adorable for summer. And then I'm just going to use the Beach Please sentiment. I thought I might use the Time to Relax, and that one would look good as well. But I went with the smaller one just because I thought it was a little bit more funny as well. So I'm going to stamp that in the center of all 3 of the bikinis. And again, I'm using the Stampin' Up! Night of Navy ink just so that it coordinates with the navy in the card. And then I think I'm going to use some Wink of Stella. Yeah, back to the glitter brush marker to give these some added oomph with shine. And that's it for card number 10. Really cute, really easy to make. So here's a look at all 10 of the cards. Please let me know which card was your favorite in the comment section below. I always love hearing which cards you guys love best. If this is the first time you've watched a video from me, please consider subscribing for more card making videos as well as paper crafting videos. And now I'm just going to show you what I have left. So not very much in terms of the cardstock and pattern paper. And then of course the other elements that are always good to use. So enjoy the still shots. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.